All right, let's level up our reading game. Today, we're going deep on speed reading.
Sounds fun.
I found this old-school workbook, the Speed Reading Workbook, kind of like the original guide to turbocharging your brain.
Awesome.
We're not just going to chat about it, though, right? We're extracting those actionable tips to actually read faster. And remember more. Think of this deep dive as a workout, but for your mind. Get those synapses firing.
I like that. A mental workout.
Exactly.
It's amazing how relevant this workbook still is, even though it was written way before we had, the internet and everything.
Right.
I mean, think about it. We're drowning in information these days. Articles and reports, emails.
Oh, tell me about it.
The never-ending scroll of social media.
Yeah.
If you can absorb information quickly and effectively, it's like a superpower nowadays.
Totally. Okay, so this workbook jumps right into bad reading habits. I'm sure we're all guilty of a few. Like, what's it called? Regression.
Oh, yeah.
When your eyes kind of do the cha-cha across the page.
Uh-huh.
Rereading the same line, 5 times.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
I swear, sometimes I spend more time going back and forth than actually moving forward.
It can really mess with your comprehension, too.
Yeah.
It's not just a time waster. Our brains, they're wired to notice movement. Yeah. So those little eye flicks back and forth, they're like mini distractions.
Interesting.
This workbook, it suggests using something to point with. Could be your finger or a pencil even, to guide your eyes smoothly across the page.
Yeah.
Sounds simple, but it makes a big difference in breaking that regression habit.
Okay, I'll have to try that. And then there's word-by-word reading.
Yes.
We're back in elementary school, sounding out each word one by one.
Right.
The workbook said that's a huge speed bump.
It is.
Because we're processing tiny chunks of information instead of seeing the big picture.
Exactly. Think about it like listening to music.
Okay.
You don't focus on every single note. You hear the melody, right? You hear the harmony, the flow. Reading should be similar. Instead of getting stuck on individual words, we want to train our brains to recognize patterns, to take in phrases and ideas at a glance. The workbook calls this expanding your field of focus.
Makes sense.
It's a big key to unlocking faster reading speeds.
Okay, so we're ditching the cha-cha eyes, the word-by-word crawl.
Uh-huh, yes.
But what about that little voice in our heads? The one that wants to read every word out loud.
Oh, yeah, the vocalization gremlin.
Yes. The workbook claims we can actually read faster and understand more if we can quiet that inner narrator.
It is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's because vocalization comes from how we first learn to read, sounding out words to get the meaning. But for us grown-ups, that habit can hold us back. It's like imagine trying to speed up a record player.
Okay.
But someone's still reading aloud from the grooves. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So the workbook says we should try to see words more like pictures, just instantly recognizing them, without needing that inner pronunciation.
Interesting. Okay, I'm ready to ditch the inner voice, embrace my inner speed reader. But how do we actually do all this? The workbook has, let's just call it a unique technique. They want us to use our hand like a page scanner.
Okay.
Basically, you sweep it across the page like you're wiping away all those bad habits. I'm picturing looking like, a frantic conductor leading an orchestra of words.
It does sound a little out there. But there's a method to it, believe it or not. Think about it. The hand movement. It helps cut down on that regression by guiding your eyes,
Right.
And it forces you to expand your field of focus.
Yeah.
Because you can't dwell on every single word.
Yeah.
And it discourages that vocalization because you're processing the information visually.
So it's like multitasking for your reading skills.
Exactly. It's like a full-on workout.
I like it. Okay, so we've got eye exercises, hand choreography, silencing that inner voice. This is definitely not just passively flipping pages. And the workbook also really emphasizes practice, like consistent practice. Just like with any workout, if we want to see results, we got to make it a regular thing.
Exactly. And it's not just about mental stamina either. It's actually about rewiring our brains. Have you heard of neuroplasticity?
Yeah.
It's the brain's amazing ability to change and adapt throughout our lives. So by practicing these techniques, we're basically creating new neural pathways, building superhighways for information to flow more efficiently.
So we're upgrading our mental hardware to handle all the information overload of the 21st century.
Exactly.
Love it. Okay, and speaking of information overload, let's talk about skimming. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't skimming just a way to pretend you read something?
Right.
But the workbook claims strategic skimming can help us understand more?
The key is to think of it as strategic information gathering. It's not just glancing at words randomly. It's about identifying quickly what's important and valuable, especially when we're all so busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
The workbook has some good tips on how to spot keywords and topic sentences and understanding how visually the text is laid out. It's like learning to read the landscape of information so you can spot the landmarks that matter.
So we're not just speed readers, we're information detectives.
Exactly. You got it.
Love that. Decoding the clues, extracting the knowledge. Okay, but let's get practical. How do we apply all this to, like, our everyday reading?
That's where dynamic reading comes in.
Okay.
This is a concept from the workbook that's all about having a clear purpose. And, before you even open the book, like setting an intention.
Okay.
Ask yourself, why am I reading this and what do I want to get out of it?
Got it.
And keep evaluating what's relevant to that goal.
So it's like choose your own adventure, but for your brain.
Exactly. It makes reading feel less passive.
Right.
More like you're actively exploring. And it's not just for fun either. Like, imagine you're prepping for a big meeting.
Yeah.
Or trying to learn about a new topic at work. Dynamic reading can help you zero in on the stuff that matters most, so you can absorb it quickly and efficiently.
Okay, so we've got our purpose. We're skimming strategically.
Sure.
And we're ready to power through these pages. But how do we make sure we're not just, like, skimming the surface? How do we really absorb and retain everything?
That's where the workbook's read, summarize, question, review formula comes in. It's a 4-step process for turning information into knowledge.
Okay, break that down for us. How does this formula actually work?
So first you read, using all the techniques we've talked about, right?
Right.
Minimize that regression, expand your field of focus, and stay engaged. Then you summarize the main points, but in your own words, like creating a mental map. This forces you to actually process what you read, not just passively absorb it.
So we're not just reading, we're actively thinking about it and organizing it in our minds.
Precisely. Then comes the questioning phase. This is where you challenge yourself, to recall the important details and connect them to the bigger picture. So ask yourself things like, what was the author's main point? Or what were the supporting points? Or how does this connect to what I already know? It's like having a conversation with the text. You're making sure you're truly engaged with the material.
Like a mental workout.
Yeah.
Testing our comprehension, making connections.
Exactly. And this act of questioning, it helps the information stick in your memory, and it can reveal if there are any gaps in your understanding. And then finally, you review.
Okay.
Go back to the parts that were challenging or insightful. This reinforces the key takeaways and helps you build that lasting mental framework.
Okay, this is starting to feel like a system I can actually use, but let's make it really concrete for our listeners. Like, imagine they're reading an article, let's say, about housing cooperatives.
Okay.
How would they use this read, summarize, question, review method to really get the most out of it?
Yeah. Okay, let's walk through it. So first, they would read the article, using their speed reading techniques to grab the main points and identify any key terms.
And they wouldn't be afraid to skim over parts that didn't seem important.
Right, exactly. Then they'd summarize the core concepts of housing cooperatives. In their own words, of course.
Okay.
Maybe noting that it's a way to own your home where you own shares in a corporation that owns the building.
Creating that mental snapshot of the key info. Got it. Then what?
Then comes the question phase. So they might ask themselves, what are the benefits of this or the drawbacks? How do people make decisions in a housing cooperative?
That's when they really dig into the details, test their understanding.
Exactly. And finally, they would review the article, looking at any sections that were tricky or that made them curious. Maybe they reread the part that explains the different types of housing cooperatives, or they go deeper into the financial stuff.
So they're basically going back with a more critical eye, trying to clarify anything they're unsure about and solidify what they've learned.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the best part is you can use this method for anything. Academic journals, news articles, even that boring report your boss just gave you. It's about becoming an active, engaged reader, not just passively taking in words.
I like that.
It's about turning information into knowledge and knowledge into power.
Powerful stuff. Okay, that's a great place to pause. We'll be right back with more speed reading insights after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Turning information into knowledge and knowledge into power. I love it. But let's be real, not everything we read is like a thrilling page turner,
Right.
What about those times when you're stuck with a super dense report or like a technical manual.
Yeah.
Does speed reading still work for that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, those are the times these techniques can be the most helpful. Remember, dynamic reading is all about purpose. So if you've got a tough text, it's even more important to figure out your goals first.
Okay.
Like, what are the key things you need to get out of it? What information will actually help you, make a decision or do something?
Yeah.
Once you've got that figured out,
Yeah.
then you can use these techniques to navigate all that information much better.
So instead of just jumping in and hoping for the best, I should pause and think, what am I trying to get out of this? What are the important bits hidden in all this text?
Exactly. And don't forget about visuals.
Oh, right.
Technical stuff often uses diagrams and charts and graphs, all that to show complex information.
Yeah.
And those visuals can often help you understand way faster than trying to read paragraphs of jargon,
It's true. Sometimes a good picture really is worth 1,000 words.
Exactly. So when you're tackling those tough reads, remember, what's your purpose? Skim strategically to find the good parts, and don't skip the visuals.
Okay.
They might be the key to understanding it all quickly.
This is making me think about all those times I felt overwhelmed by a reading assignment, Back in the day.
Yeah.
If I'd known these techniques then, it would have saved me so much time and frustration.
It's never too late to learn.
That's true.
And think about how these skills can help you, not just in your personal life, but at work, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Imagine being able to quickly absorb those industry reports or analyze data about your competitors or stay ahead of the curve on new trends, all while your colleagues are still on page 1.
Right. It's like having a secret weapon in the information age. Being able to process information quickly and efficiently is such a valuable skill these days.
Absolutely. And even beyond the practical benefits, there's something really rewarding about being a more efficient reader,
I get that.
It's about expanding what you know, loving to learn, and embracing the joy of discovering new things. It's like you're opening up new pathways in your brain, making connections you never thought possible.
You're making me realize that speed reading isn't just about reading faster. It's about thinking faster, too.
Yes.
It's about training our minds to be more, agile, more discerning, more open to new ideas.
That's a great way to put it. It's about being curious and giving yourself the tools to follow that curiosity, with passion and efficiency. It's like we're becoming explorers of all the information out there, and speed reading is our spaceship.
I love that. And I love that this workbook emphasizes that there's no one right way to do speed reading.
Right.
It encourages us to find what works for us, to experiment and adapt to our own learning style.
Absolutely. Some people might love that hand-sweeping technique. Others might prefer a pointer. Some might be natural skimmers, while others need to work on expanding their focus. It's all about finding what works best for you, making those techniques your own.
It's like finding your own rhythm, your own flow, your own way of dancing with the text.
Exactly. And don't forget about practice. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, until it's like second nature.
Makes sense.
Just like learning a new language or a musical instrument, it might feel weird at first.
Yeah.
But with time and effort, it becomes easy and smooth.
This is all sounding really inspiring, but I got to admit, I'm a little intimidated too. What if I try all these techniques and I'm still a slow reader?
That's okay.
What if I just can't break those old habits?
It's so important to be patient with yourself, Learning anything new takes time and effort. Don't get discouraged if you don't see huge changes overnight. Focus on the small wins, like maybe you're regressing less, or you can skim a page faster than before.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And remember, speed reading isn't a competition. It's a personal journey. It's about you becoming the best reader you can be.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
It's about enjoying the process and seeing these techniques as tools for self-improvement, not a test I have to pass.
I like that. And, there are lots of people out there who are into speed reading. They're eager to share what they've learned and offer support. So don't be afraid to connect with them.
Yeah.
Swap tips, celebrate each other's wins.
Like any journey, it's better with friends, right?
Exactly. It's like joining a team. You don't have to go it alone.
Right. Okay, so as we're going on this speed reading journey, we should also be adventurous with what we're reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be afraid to try new genres, discover new authors, and topics we might not have found otherwise.
I couldn't agree more. Speed reading isn't just about efficiency. It's a way to open up a whole world of knowledge and ideas. It's about loving to learn and enjoying the thrill of finding new things.
And even if we don't become speed reading superstars overnight, just trying these techniques is a good step.
It is.
It's about challenging ourselves, expanding what we know, and becoming more active, engaged readers.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe someday you'll find yourself flying through pages, absorbing everything super fast, and wondering how you ever lived without these techniques.
I hope so. You know, this whole conversation has been really eye-opening. I'm feeling motivated to put all these tips to use.
Me too.
But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about choosing the right reading material.
Oh, yes. The workbook really stresses that we shouldn't waste our time and energy on stuff that doesn't matter to us, you know?
Right.
Be picky. Be thoughtful about what you choose to read. Just like we're being more thoughtful about how we read.
It's like, why spend hours on a book that's boring? There's so many amazing books out there waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. So how do we balance staying informed about a lot of different things with really focusing on the stuff we're passionate about?
That's a great question. It's like creating a reading diet for our minds, right?
Yeah.
Something that nourishes us and helps us grow intellectually. We want to try different genres and topics, but we also want to enjoy the books that really speak to us, the ones that make us think and feel and learn.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And remember, what we like to read changes over time. What we loved in the past might not be as interesting now. It's like with food, sometimes we want something different, something that expands our taste.
So as we're learning to speed read, we should also be adventurous with what we're reading, right?
Yes.
Don't be afraid to step outside our comfort zone, explore new genres, and discover things we might never have found otherwise.
Absolutely. Speed reading isn't just a tool, it's a gateway to a wider world of knowledge and ideas. It's about loving to learn and enjoying the joy of discovery.
I love that. And even if we don't become speed reading experts right away, just trying these techniques is a step forward.
Definitely.
It's about challenging ourselves, learning new things, and becoming more active, engaged readers.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself effortlessly gliding through pages, absorbing information at lightning speed, and wondering how you ever lived without these techniques.
I hope so. This has been such an insightful conversation, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
I agree. There's so much more to explore. And I hope this deep dive has made everyone curious to keep learning and trying out these techniques.
And remember, listeners, you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of resources out there, books, articles, online groups, all about helping people become better readers.
That's right. And don't be shy about sharing your experiences with others. Connect with other speed reading fans, trade tips, and celebrate each other's successes.
It's about building a community of learners, all trying to improve their reading. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
But before we do, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. Never stop exploring, never stop learning, and never underestimate the power of reading.
Beautifully said. And until next time, happy reading.
It really is. And you know, it's kind of wild that this workbook, from before the internet and everything, it like predicted the problems we have now.
Yeah.
Like we're bombarded with information constantly.
It's true.
It's like drinking from a fire hose, as they say. So speed reading, it almost becomes a way to deal with all that.
Right, like a filter for your brain.
Exactly.
Helps you sift through all the noise and find the important stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of filters, I've been wondering about something. We've talked a lot about the mechanics of speed reading. But what about the emotional side of things?
Oh, interesting.
Does reading faster change how we connect with what we're reading emotionally?
That's a really good question. And I don't think this workbook really goes into that much. But I do think it's worth thinking about how speed reading might affect our emotional connection to the text.
Yeah. Like, what about those times when you're reading a really powerful book or like a beautiful poem? Does speed reading let you fully experience those emotions, or does it make you miss them?
I think it's a tricky balance for sure. And it comes down to being intentional about why you're reading and how you're reading. If you're just reading for fun, to get lost in the story, then maybe a slower pace is better.
Right, yeah.
You want those words to sink in, to really feel the beauty of the language and the emotions.
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
If I'm reading instructions for something, I want to be fast and efficient. But if I'm reading, like, a love letter, I'm going to savor every word.
Exactly. And I think that shows how great it is to have different ways of reading. You can be a speed reader when you need to be. And you can also be a slow, thoughtful reader when you want to really connect with the words.
Yeah, it's about being flexible, choosing the right style for what you're reading and what you want to get out of it.
Exactly. It's about being present with the text, aware of your own thoughts and feelings, and choosing how you want to interact with the words. It's like being a mindful reader, not just a fast one.
I love that, mindful reading. And I think that mindfulness should apply to what we choose to read, too.
Absolutely.
And we talked about being selective, picking things that align with our goals and interests.
Right.
But it's also about being open to, those happy accidents, the books we find that we weren't even looking for.
Yes. Like when you're browsing a library or a bookstore and something just catches your eye, you weren't planning on reading it, but you end up loving it.
Right, exactly. It's about embracing the adventure of reading, the joy of finding new things, and all the possibilities that come with learning and growing through the written word.
Beautifully said.
This has been such a great conversation, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
I agree. There's so much more to discover, and I hope this deep dive has inspired everyone to keep learning and experimenting with these techniques.
And remember, listeners, you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of resources out there, books, articles, online communities, all about helping people become better readers.
That's right. And don't be afraid to share your experiences with others. Talk to other speed reading enthusiasts, swap tips, and celebrate each other's successes.
It's about building a community, a group of people who all want to improve their reading skills.
Exactly.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. Never stop exploring, never stop learning, and never underestimate the power of reading.
Beautifully said. And until next time, dear listeners, happy reading.